Fiber Junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron for episode 5. Today we are doing the second part of our sock series. So we'll be talking about sock knitting, and today we are especially going to focus on yarns for sock knitting. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Let's see, what else has been going on since I last talked to you? Well, if you remember in my last video, it was freezing cold and I'd had difficulties with my microphone. So I've purchased a new one, so we're going to test that out today, see how sound quality goes. And I have also been talking to my husband about getting a new phone, and I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but hopefully soon. So just because of all the technical difficulties that I have encountered, I have been a little hurried in my schedule of videos and rushing to kind of fit everything in. But I hope that this one will be a pretty good quality video, and hopefully with adjusting to in the next couple weeks, I'll probably be getting a new phone sometime, either this week or next week, maybe a week after. So hopefully that won't put me too far off on learning how to use the new phone. I'm a little technology backward. I can do it, but it's not like intuitive, and I really have to work at it, and I don't have a whole lot of patience when things don't work out well with technology. It kind of freaks me out. It's not like other things that I feel more comfortable around. It just tends to send me straight into panic mode. So hopefully that won't set me off too bad. But let's get back to our sock knitting series. So last week in part 1, we talked about different methods you can use to knit socks. So we discussed double pointed needles versus circular, and we talked about the magic loop. I actually had a lot of people that were really interested in the magic loop. A lot of you guys said that you already use the magic loop, which is awesome. Yay, my favorite method. And I did have quite a few people that were wanting more information on magic loop, so we're not going to do that today because I was planning to really get straight into yarn contents and talk about some ease and fit issues with socks. So I'm wanting to do that next, but I am thinking that for one of our upcoming videos, we're probably going to do a little more in-depth tutorial on how to get started with the magic loop, kind of looking at some magic loop projects, etc. So for today, I wanted to talk about sock yarns. What is my favorite sock yarn? What do I generally use for socks? What are some of the most common blends you can find, etc. So somebody asked me on Instagram a while back what my very favorite sock yarn was, and I've had a couple other people since ask me what I recommend. So no surprise, I'm sure, but I am going to have to say Potion Yarns makes my favorite sock yarn. Obviously, I'm going to promote my own shop, but I have a couple others that I really like as well. So what I wanted to do was show you my favorite sock yarns that are from my shop, and then I wanted to talk about fiber blends and things you can look for in a sock yarn. So no matter where you're purchasing it, if you don't have access to my yarns, or if that's a little out of the budget, or if you're just at a fiber festival and have like the best hand-dyed yarns in front of you and you just want to go ahead and snag some of those, or your little local yarn shop is having a sale or something, I'll teach you kind of what you need to look for really great socks. But keep in mind that a lot of it just comes down to personal preference. It's not that what I say is law, or that I am like ultimate sock knitting guru or whatever. So I'll just tell you my opinions and what I like and what I've noticed both as a dyer and a knitter, what is best to work with for socks, and then you can take that information and make your own conclusions. But hopefully this will get you started in the right direction. So my very favorite sock yarn, I actually have two. I could not pick just one. But if you held a gun to my head and said I have to pick just one, I would pick the Foxy sock. This is from my shop, Potion Yarns, obviously. And the Foxy, if you guys can see that, is a really great 2-ply. So if you are familiar with spinning terms, this will not be new to you, but in case you aren't and you haven't really come across this term before, when yarn is being spun, you have the wool roving, and as you add twist into it and pull it out, it creates the yarn. If you just make one strand of yarn and get it nice and twisted, and then you set that and wind it into a skein, that is called a single ply because there's just one strand of yarn. So what a lot of spinners will do, and what most commercial yarns will do, is they will make multiple singles, so multiple strands of yarn, and then they will spin those together. So it's kind of a double or triple spinning process where they'll go back in and they'll spin the 2 plies, the single and the single ply, together. And then that makes a 2-ply yarn. Or 3 plies makes a 3-ply yarn, 4 plies makes a 4-ply, 8 plies makes an 8-ply, etc. So it has to do with the strength of the yarn. Now, if you have vintage knitting patterns or knitting patterns from another country, sometimes you will see that in the yarn weight description, they will call it like a 4-ply yarn instead of using worsted weight or DK or fingering or whatever. That can be really confusing because it makes it sound like it has to do with the thickness of the yarn. That actually is not true. It just has to do with how many plies and therefore the strength and the balance, because yarns tend to react differently the more plies they have. So it gives you an idea more of the characteristics of the fiber, but single ply yarn can literally be a big, fat, bulky, like number 6, if you're used to the number system from the Craft Yarn Council. It can be like a super bulky number 6, or it can be a super skinny little crochet thread or lace weight size 0 yarn. Can both be single ply. They can both be 4-ply or 8-ply. It literally does not determine thickness alone. It has to do more with strength and just the composition of the yarn. So my Foxy sock that I have in the shop is a 2-ply, and what I love about that is it gives it a little bit of texture, but it's very, very strong and bouncy. So I really love the Foxy because it's just a really great all-around yarn for everything. I've used it for sweaters, fingerless gloves, socks, hats, literally everything. Shawls is one of my favorite things to use it for. It's just a really great all-around, good for everything kind of yarn. And actually the Gaia fingering, which is also in my shop, is also a 2-ply that looks almost identical to the Foxy. It just has a different fiber content. And my fairy wing that you saw in my Hold Sway sweater a couple weeks ago is the Merino and Silk blend. It is also a 2-ply yarn that looks very similar to the Foxy and the Gaia, but it has a different fiber content and a different feel. So Foxy, the reason I like this one best as the sock yarn is it blends 80% superwash merino with 20% nylon. So you get the added reinforcement and strength of the nylon in with the superwash merino, which is just an all-around great, soft but still strong, bouncy kind of a yarn. So that's my favorite sock yarn. My very close second favorite sock yarn, I couldn't resist showing you guys, it is also Potion Yarns, and that is my Dryad sock. I don't know if you guys can see that. This is on the 10-year-old Japanese ninja colorway. The other one that I showed you on the Foxy, this is Panties in a Twist. It's a really light rosy lavender tonal with some really fun speckles all over it. Both of these are fun speckly yarns. So the Dryad is 80% superwash merino, and it is 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. So you get the strength of the nylon, but you have that cashmere added in for extra luxury and just makes it ultra soft and very bouncy and very warm. So this is a very close second. This is my favorite luxury, but still workhorse everyday sock yarn. If I had to pick one, I'd go with the Foxy just as all-around basic sock yarn. But if I could knit every pair for the rest of my life in the Dryad, I would do so because it just feels heavenly. The squish factor on this is amazing. And yes, I said squish, not squish, and that's because it's extra squishy. It's not just squish, it's swoosh. It's so good. It's so good, you guys. I could squish this all day long, but I won't. So that is my second favorite sock yarn. I love having that little blend of cashmere in there because, like I said, it's just like a little everyday luxury. It's a touch of luxury without the highly expensive price tag of more cashmere content. And by having it be mostly superwash merino, that keeps it very, very strong, very bouncy. It takes the dyes beautifully, and it adds extra strength and structure to the cashmere, but the cashmere really softens and adds some extra warmth and bounce to it. The nylon is really, really great for reinforcing. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about next. Let's talk about fiber blends in general. So I've kind of talked a little bit about my 2 favorite yarns. So one of the things that you're going to want to look for when you go shopping for sock yarns is you are going to want to know, and it isn't really better one way or the other, you just need to know which one you're buying. You need to notice if you are buying superwash versus non-superwash. Even when you buy a superwash yarn, that does not necessarily mean that it can go in the washing machine. So always, always, always refer to the washing instructions, and just as importantly, if not more so, no matter what the washing instructions say, it's best to test a new yarn on a swatch. So even if it's not a very big swatch, even just a tiny little square or a tiny little like in the round, because really you should take your gauge swatches for socks in the round since you'll be knitting in the round. But unless of course you're knitting flat and seaming. But for most of us, we're knitting our socks in the round. So you should take your gauge swatch in the round, and then you should wash the swatch the same way you're going to wash your socks. And that will often tell you whether a superwash yarn is actually okay to go in the dryer. I've done it both ways. I tend to wash most of my socks in the machine and then lay them flat or hang dry them. But I do have several pair that I throw in the dryer as well. And I just tumble them on a low setting and be careful what I put in the dryer with it. But I don't usually have any problems. But all of the ones that are like extra special, I tend to lay out flat. And I definitely take care to look at the fiber contents because, like I said, superwash merino doesn't necessarily mean it can go in the washing machine, especially if it's indie dyed. A lot of times they'll tell you to hand wash it anyways, but it's always worth testing on a swatch. So you should pay attention to whether or not it's superwash because I have not paid attention before, and I spent hours and hours knitting very intricate twisted traveling stitch, like Bavarian style stitches. If you don't know what that is, look up Bavarian knitting or twisted. Ooh, I was going to say twisted stitch. I don't know if that's actually right, but look up Bavarian knitting. You'll see what I mean. It's lots of intricate little, they look like cables. They're like little traveling running stitches and crisscrossies and all these amazingly intricate stitches. They're not that hard. There's just a lot going on. But I knit some really fancy, intricate socks for my husband. And I used a really fancy yarn that I bought on sale at a local yarn store, but I neglected to look at the washing instructions, didn't realize it wasn't superwash, and threw it in not just the washing machine. Oh yes, I did throw it in the dryer. Those things felted into the most shapeless, awkward bags ever. Literally, he wore them once, maybe twice before I did this. And I'm the one who did it, so I can't even get after him. And he was so gracious about it and just said, oh, it's okay, I'll wear them anyways, like slippers, because they're all felted together now. I'm the one who cried. Because I put hours and hours into this very intricate pattern, and it was this beautiful hunter green color, and they were just great, and the intricate stitches were completely lost in the felting process, so it just looked like a big bag. And they don't fit his feet very well. He wears them as like house slippers around the house, and bless his heart. He's so sweet, and he appreciates hand knits so much, which is awesome. But they looked terrible. So make sure you check your washing instructions, and make sure you realize whether or not you're knitting with superwash or not superwash wool, because it makes a difference. In general, I would say wool is the best way to go for your socks, unless you are allergic to wool. There are some really great cotton sock yarns out there. Generally, they are blended with nylon, polyester, bamboo, other types of fibers like that to give them some extra strength and memory, because cotton has really bad elasticity. It does not have memory like at all. So cotton is a wonderful fiber for like summer or warm weather socks, or for people who are allergic to wool, but you definitely want to make sure you get it blended in with some other kind of fiber that gives it more shape and elasticity, like bamboo or nylon. So that's definitely something to consider as well. I have knit, you know, I don't think I've ever knit socks. I was going to say I have knit with alpaca blends, but I have knit with alpaca blend sock yarn, but I don't think I made socks out of it, if that makes sense. I think I did like a shawl or something. But an alpaca blend would be great for really cozy warm socks, but I would make sure to keep the blend rather small, because you're going to want to, like just a small amount of alpaca, I mean, because if you get too much alpaca, it can A, be overly hot when it's stuffed in a shoe anyways, and your feet might sweat too much. But B, it might also just offer you a little too much drape and a little too much fluidity. Socks you really want to be very stretchy and bounce back to their shape really well, because they take a major beating getting walked around on and being stuffed in shoes and all the other things we do with them. So you want to be considering that when you take a sock yarn off the shelf and decide to cast on. You want to really make sure that it has some good elasticity. So yeah, I would say that merino cashmere nylon blends and superwash merino nylon blends are my two favorites, obviously, like my sock yarns. And honestly, those fiber contents in those proportions, or very similar proportions, are very easy to find both commercially and in hand-dyed yarns. So if you're really looking around at other shops and things, you shouldn't have any trouble finding very similar contents to the ones that I have. Although why you'd look at other shops when you have such beautiful yarns in my shop is beyond me. But you know, I'm realistic enough to know that isn't always practical. And some of you that live overseas, that might be, I understand that shipping out of the US to overseas to certain countries can be extremely expensive at times, and you might not feel like splurging that much for my sock yarn yet. But yeah, you should be able to find those blends pretty easily, and those are my favorites. I do really love, there's been kind of a recent surgence in the indie dyed market of yak fibers, so like merino, yak, and nylon, or yak and silk and merino, or wool and yak and bamboo or nylon or something like that. So I'm a big fan, you guys. I recently knit a pair of socks. I wish I brought them down here, but I didn't think to grab them. But I recently knit a pair of socks, as recently as in last spring. I knit a pair of socks out of a superwash merino, nylon, and yak blend, which is actually now a blend that I have in small doses in the shop. It's my Nymphette base. You can find that in the shop right now on the Bee Stung Lips colorway, and soon on some other colorways. But I am loving it. It is a little bit softer than just the straight up superwash merino and nylon because it has the merino and the yak in it. And because of the yarn that I get, it's an undyed yak, so it comes to me as a kind of light silvery gray color. And so it takes dyes a little differently than a bleached white yarn or a another color base yarn. So it definitely, it kind of gives it this edgy, darker, richer, more saturated look to the colors, which, you know me, those are my things. Rich, saturated jewel tones, dark, edgy colors. I'm all about that. So I personally love it. And it knits up like a dream, and it's very stretchy. And the nylon gives it extra strength, but the yak really gives it this awesome, bouncy softness and warmth that is just unbeatable. So I highly recommend checking out the new yak blend sock yarns that are out there. They're pretty amazing. And check the shop for more Nymphette skeins. Like I said, I've got a couple in there right now. I've been selling them really well though, so I've been listing them in very small doses because I was just testing it out. And then every time I list a few, they sell out really quickly. And then I list a few more and they sell out really quickly. So I need to order some more, but it's going to be a little bit before I get a large dose in the shop. So hopefully this spring I can get some more of that in for you guys. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys a finished sock project that I have. I've already shown these a couple times on the podcast, but I finished my sock blank socks that I was knitting. So they're not blocked or anything. I literally just finished weaving the ends in this evening. And I am loving them. These are the socks that I knit from a blank that I purchased from another indie dyer. And I just love how they knit up. They're really bright and crazy. And they were a single knit sock blank, so they don't match, which I'm totally fine with. I matched them as closely as I could, so one end of my sock blank was the lighter colors that you see here, like the pinks. It had more white space, pinks, reds, and yellows in it. And then the other end was all just these colors right here, the blues and greens and little flashes of orange and black. So I unwound some of my yarn when I was knitting the first sock, which I did this one first. So I cast on from the toe, and I knit a little ways, and then I cut the yarn, and I wound off some more of the pink and white area, the lighter colored area, and I held it off to the side. And then I rejoined the yarn and knit down here up until about here. And then I joined in some more yarn and I kind of striped it back and forth so I could add a little more of the light colors at the top. And then I made sure to keep enough so that I could do the same thing over here. So I cast on again with the light colors, knit up the toe, joined the new sock blank with the dark colors, and then I striped in at the end some more of the light colors up here. So they don't match exactly by any stretch of the imagination, but they're close and they have the same basic concept. And yeah, I really love them. I did do them one at a time, so I was real careful to measure them as much as possible, but I didn't like count rows and stuff, so they might be slightly off here and there, but they're really pretty close. And I cannot wait to wear them. They feel really great. This was my first time trying the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I would do a tutorial of, but it is a pattern you have to purchase on Ravelry, so I think I will just add a link to the Fish Lips Kiss below here so you guys can go purchase that. It is literally $1 to purchase the pattern, and she gives you tons of information. She shows you how to put it into any pattern, toe up or top down, and she gives you tons of examples, lots of pictures, videos. It's a lot of information for $1, so literally just go buy the pattern because it's $1, and it's so great. So I really liked it. I haven't tried wearing them yet though, so I am going to try those on later tonight and see how they fit, but I enjoyed knitting the Fish Lips Kiss heel. But I wanted to show this to you partly because I wanted to show off my new project because it's amazing, but also because I wanted to show you what it looks like when you knit from a sock blank. And I wish I had had the full blank that you could see, but I started knitting these before I started the podcast, and I didn't think to, there is a kind of a picture in my Instagram if you go back a ways, like way back to the summer in July when I got this sock blank, but it's not like all stretched out and super great, so you can only kind of see it. But this gives you a little bit of an idea of how sock blanks knit up, and they changes the pattern so much, and you get these little blips and dots of color. Some people really don't like it, and some people love it, and I've seen other ones that I really didn't like, but I love these. So I think it really just depends on the pattern, the colors used, etc. I liked this one because she had so much color, and it's so bright and saturated and kind of neon-y and fun. So yeah, I'm loving those. This is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon blend, which is what my sock blanks that I have in the shop are. I'm selling out of them pretty quickly, so I'm hoping to get some more dyed up pretty soon because they were a big hit in the shop update last week, and I also had way crazy amounts of fun dyeing them. My husband got in on it. If you want to see his creation, go back to my previous video, part 1. I showed the sock blanks and showed the one my husband did. It's amazing, and it was the first one that sold, so he was thrilled about that. And I've had a lot of people asking for more hubby hand paints, so we will probably be making that a semi-regular feature in the shop. We'll see. But I wanted to show you guys how the sock blanks knit up, because if you haven't tried them, this is a great way to do sock knitting. And my sock blanks I have in the shop are double knit sock blanks rather than the single knit, so you can do 2 at a time socks and get pretty close to identical socks, if not identical. Because of the way sock blanks are dyed, sometimes you might have slight differences in saturation of color or something, but it won't be enough that anybody will really notice. So we should definitely go check those out, and I'll try to get some more in there soon. There's a couple still up there. But yeah, I really loved it, and I wanted to show it to you because this is the highest content of nylon I would personally use in a sock yarn, is 25%. After 25%, in my opinion, it starts to get a little tough. It's not as soft, and it's pretty strong, but there's a big debate going on in the indie dyed community, and really the yarn community in general, not just indie dyers, but I see it a lot with other indie dyers that I talk to online. There's a big debate going on right now as to whether or not nylon actually does anything in sock yarns. For years, people have told us that nylon adds stretchiness and elasticity to your socks, so you need nylon in a sock yarn so that it's stretchy. And then a bunch of people recently started saying that's absolutely not true. If you look at the scientific makeup and the properties of nylon, it actually doesn't have any elasticity. That's a lot of bull crap. And it seemed like people divided very quickly into 2 camps, the pro-nylon versus the anti-nylon. And there are some people out there who are die-hard, I refuse to use nylon in anything, it's a waste of time and money. And to be fair, they have the good argument on their side that it is actually not super environmentally friendly to produce nylon. But it's also very cheap, and it's a easily renewable resource because it's totally man-made, so we can make more. But it's not, it is a lot of factory-produced, you know. There's also a big debate going on about whether or not it can be considered a sustainable resource or not. I'm of the opinion that it could be if they would continue making some strides in the production manufacturing methods, but that's neither here nor there. For right now, what you need to know is that there is a debate going on, and you do not have to pick a side. I have remained firmly in the middle of use it or don't. I don't really care. I offer both in my shop. And that's also why when I first got started, I wasn't really sure why I was offering the Gaia and the Foxy, because they look identical in the skein. They feel almost identical, and they both make excellent socks and are both super strong. The 2-ply structure makes it very, very strong so that you can use this on high abrasion things like socks. And even the Gaia, which is just 100% superwash merino, no nylon, no nothing, it makes beautiful, excellent, very strong socks. I highly recommend it as well. So I almost didn't get it, but I knew the debate was kind of going on, and I was really curious to try it out. So when I very first started dyeing yarn, I bought some of both bases and tried them out personally, and was like, I literally, like, I can sort of kind of tell a difference between the nylon blend and the non-nylon blend when I'm knitting with it and wearing it, but only sort of kind of, and honestly, I don't think it makes a big difference, and I haven't noticed them being any more strong with the nylon than not. But here's what I discovered in researching it. I mean, it depends on who you talk to, but it seems to me, like looking at the data and the opinions, it seems like nylon, in my opinion, does not actually add much elasticity, but it does add strength. It is a reinforcement. So it is adding an extra layer of strength and it resists abrasion very well. So that's why I like it for socks. That is why the Foxy is my #1 sock yarn. Whenever anybody asks me, I send them to the Foxy sock or the Dryad sock because they both have small amounts of nylon and they both take dye beautifully, but they're still overwhelmingly the superwash merino, so very soft, and then of course the cashmere helps. But those are my 2 favorites because I like the nylon for added strength and durability. Not so much elasticity. The merino is pretty elastic on its own. I haven't noticed a difference between my nylon sock yarns and my non-nylon sock yarns, just straight up superwash merino, in elasticity. And I haven't really noticed a big difference in the strength either, but maybe it's just because I haven't worn them long enough, so we'll see. But I'm really enjoying those, and I think if you do choose to use nylon, I would just keep it under to 25% or under. 25% is fine. Anything over that, I mean, you could probably go up to at least 30% and not have a huge major issue, but most manufacturers don't blend over that anyways because it does start to take away from the softness and the drape of the yarn, and it starts to add in other elements of the nylon that are less desirable in socks. So try to keep it to 25% or less. If you can do like 10%, that's, in my opinion, ideal, like the Dryad that has just 10% nylon, because it's definitely enough to keep it strong and reinforced, but it doesn't at all compete with the softness of the merino and the cashmere. So just some things to consider. If you are going to use bamboo in socks, I'm a big fan of bamboo. Actually, my very first socks that I knit that we talked about a couple weeks ago, I knit with a bamboo acrylic wool blend from a big box chain store. And I loved it. The bamboo made it very soft and drapey, but it was a very small amount of bamboo, like between 10 and 20%, I think. And it was just really awesome, really great, soft, bouncy, strong sock yarn. I loved it. So I highly recommend it, but again, small dosages on the bamboo. Okay, so that's kind of how I feel about sock yarns. Definitely I think that indie dyed yarn, in my opinion, is always going to be better because you can get the unique awesomeness of purchasing directly from a dyer. Every skein is unique, and there's so many beautiful things, like amazing speckles out there. There's so many beautiful variegated yarns, even a tonal. This is a skein of the Perfect Gentleman, my really pretty brown that I've been absolutely loving this winter. And this is just a semi-solid tonal, but it has not been reskeined, so you can see areas that took the dye lighter and darker. And I really love that look, and this knits up beautifully, and you can do a little bit more elaborate stitch work with a solid or semi-solid than you can with like a speckle or a variegated. But all those great variegated hand-painted yarns from indie dyers, like sock blanks, are awesome on vanilla socks, simple ribbed socks. We're going to talk in another episode about that's pattern stitches I like best for socks and what types of yarns to use for what types of patterns. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it now, but I definitely prefer indie dyed yarn. I am a little biased, but I prefer that. However, I did want to tell you guys a couple of my favorite big commercial yarns you can find at like your local yarn store. My #1 favorite, affordable, not very expensive, available in a huge variety of colors and a decent yardage for the price is Jojoland Ballad. And I will put a link to that in the box below. Jojoland is a brand that makes tons of different yarns, and their Ballad sock yarn is awesome. I want to say it's superwash. Well, they have a superwash and a non-superwash version, so you can use it for traditional Fair Isle colorwork. You can use it for felting projects if you get the non-superwash, or you can get the superwash blend for socks and things, which is what I like. I think it's just straight 100% wool. I can't actually remember off the top of my head, but it's either wool or a wool and tiny bit of nylon blend. But I love it. As far as bounce factor, it is multiple plies. I don't even remember how many, but it is just extremely bouncy. Like you squish the yarn and it like springs back at you almost. It's that squishy, which I love in socks and in color work. I actually really like the Jojoland Ballad for non-traditional Fair Isle colorwork, the superwash version. It's very, very fun. But I also love that they have it in just this huge variety of solid colors. Plus they have all these really great like heathered skeins where they, in the spinning process, they spin like a couple different colors of the plies together and create this kind of cool heathered version. They have like kind of rainbowy colors. And I think it retails usually for between like $5 and $8 a ball or something like that. It's really affordable. And it's just a nice commercial dyed yarn. It's not gonna, you're not gonna find the same colorways like you could in indie dyed yarn, and it's not gonna have the same factor of being like a piece of artwork that you work with. But if you're on a budget or you just want to try it out, or you need like a really solid, no variation in the skein, a straight up solid for a really complicated stitch work or color work or something on your socks, that would be my go-to. I also enjoy Knit Picks yarn, which again, I'll post a link to Knit Picks below. It's a big website that most people have heard of, and if you haven't, you're welcome, and I'm sorry all at the same time, because they have incredible commercially milled and spun and dyed yarns. But in my opinion, Knit Picks is better quality than what you'll find at your traditional box stores. We're not going to name any names, but you all know who I'm thinking of, like the big craft box stores that are in every city, it seems like. It's going to be better quality, in my opinion, than most of the stuff you find there. But it's also going to be a lower price tag than the majority of local yarn stores. So I'm talking, you can get acrylic wool blend worsted weight for like $2.99, $3.99 a ball. You can get hand paints. It's commercially dyed, but in a hand painted style. You can get like variegated or like a tonal, kind of like this, where you get multiple shades in the same range, like a semi-solid tonal sock yarn. You can get those for like $10.99 a skein or something like that. So it's a really good budget option, but I will say I'm not as in love with the sock yarn as a lot of other knitters. I recently tried the Stroll sock yarn from there, and I did not care for it. To me, it felt too soft, and it just felt limp in my hand. Now, I know that it sounds ridiculous to say something is too soft, but I felt like it was very soft and just kind of limp in my hands, and it just sort of was like, bleh. And I have a pair, one of my favorite pairs of socks right now is knit with the, I'm actually wearing them. I apologize for the sweaty sock, but I want to show this to you. I knit this pair out of the Stroll hand paints. It's their semi-solid line, and it's been on my sweaty foot all day, so I apologize. But this is the Traveler's sock that was in Interweave Knits several years ago. I'll put a link to that pattern below as well. Highly recommend the pattern. I love it, love it, love it. It has these pretty tiny little cables that split up the foot and just are so pretty. And it's been an awesome sock for me. But I've noticed that when I was knitting the sock, the yarn itself felt very limp and just sort of bleh on my needles. And I was like, oh, well, this will be a really soft sock. This is great. And I'm trying to like talk myself into loving it. And then I put the socks on and was like, oh, it does feel soft. It's amazing. I loved the pattern. And I noticed that within a couple of wearings, these socks still technically fit me, but they have loosened up a lot faster than most of my socks do. And I think it's because that yarn is limp. And I know it's not just this one skein. Like, I got a weird one because this is not the first skein of yarn I've had from this line. I've used the Stroll yarn for a vintage style sweater that I knit, and for another pair of socks, and for fingerless gloves. And every single one of those projects has been limp, dissatisfying, and lost its shape and stretched out way too fast. So in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of the Stroll. I haven't tried the Felici from Knit Picks, so you might give them a shot. I have heard very good things about the Felici sock yarn. I have not tried it though. But just something to keep in mind. Again, for a cheap pair of socks, it's great. So if this is your first pair, knock yourself out, learn on it, because you're only out, you know, $5 to $12 a skein, so it's not the end of the world. It's not like buying a $32 skein of fancy hand-dyed sock yarn and then crying when something inevitably goes wrong. So it's a good, like, starter, try it out, whatever. It's good on a budget yarn, but, you know, make your own decisions, because I know some other people who absolutely swear by the Stroll sock yarn, and it's their favorite thing to use. So, not for me, in my opinion. I can tell a difference between that and hand-dyed yarn for sure. Not only in the look, but also in the feel and just the way that it wears. So maybe keep that in mind. I can't believe I have this sweaty sock on my lap this whole time that I'm talking to you. I had a dance practice tonight and everything, and I wore that through that, and then I was holding it, and now my hands are all sweaty and gross. So I actually was planning to talk about a couple more things, and I think we're running out of time. So I think what I'm going to do is extend the series a little bit more. I was hoping to make it in 3 videos, and I'm thinking it's going to be at least 4 now. So I hope you guys aren't too tired of this. I am planning to do a couple videos that are going to be demonstration videos that will probably be separate, maybe separate from the podcast, because I don't want to bore our non-sock knitters too terribly much. So if they aren't convinced by the end of this episode to give it a shot, they might not be, and they might only have a little bit of patience left on my sock talk. was going to say sock knitting talk, and then I realized that was silly. I should just say sock talk. But I know a lot of you guys have been enjoying this, which I'm really grateful for, because like I said last week, I could talk about socks all dang day, and I would really love to continue this. But I also feel like there is so much information that I'm trying to throw at you guys in very short little videos. So last week I went way over time. This week I'm trying really hard. I have no idea what time it is, but I'm trying really hard to keep it down. And I am going to try to keep them shorter and more digestible, but please realize that I am, first of all, not a know-it-all. I do not know everything about sock knitting, and I'm probably wrong about some of the things that I say, but I'm mostly going off of my own experience and then things that I've read or talked to other more experienced knitters about. So I'm just trying to give you the benefit of all of my various places I gather information for myself, but I could be wrong. Also, a lot of the things that I tell you are subjective and are completely based on your personal opinion, like Stroll sock yarn stretches out of shape way too fast and is limp and blah. That's my personal experience, but like I said, I know lots of other knitters who swear by it and think it's the best thing ever. So everything I say, take with a grain of salt. But also, I just think there's so much information out there about socks. And in an upcoming episode, I am going to do a book review talk where we are going to, I'm going to show you several of my favorite books specifically for sock knitting and information on yarns and sock. So I really want to save my reviews for another video, which we're going to do a little later, but I do want to let you know that that's coming and that I'm giving you a lot of little nuggets of information that then you can go and Google or read books on, check out the books I'm going to recommend in the next video, things like that, to get you more information. Because just like when I was explaining spinning and all the different plies, that was like a very, very, very tiny, short, quickie overview. Did not even begin to go into a lot of the other information. And for those of you spinners out there who've been spinning longer than me, which is most of you probably since I just started last year, you guys are probably like, oh my god, she's like making it sound way too simplistic and stupid. That's not even at all what it's about. It's literally like just a basic bare touch on this is how I understand it. But you can definitely go get way more information, and the more information you get, the better your sock knitting will be, because you will have more knowledge, you will have more experience, you can test things out. There's a difference between book knowledge and experience knowledge, but if you can start with more of the, what someone else tells you or what you read in a book or see online, that's a good jumping off point, and then you can experience it and figure out if you agree or disagree and where to go from there, right? So that's all I'm trying to do, is just give you little nuggets of information, give you the inspiration to start, and give you a place to go look for further information. And then, as always, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you would like to see more of. Let me know what information you need specifically on socks for my next couple videos in the series. But also, in general, what do you want me to talk about on the podcast? If you are not a sock knitter and you're not in love with socks and you have been bored to death, first of all, if you've made it this far and you're not, kudos. And I apologize for all the sock talk. Although a lot of the things that I talked about today with fiber content and spinning and plies and all of that translate into all types of knitting and crochet. So it's not specifically sock today. But if you have made it this far and you're not a sock knitter, I really want to hear from you too, because I've got lots of information from the sock knitters on what they want to hear, and I'm really excited about our sock series. But I do want to be doing some videos for you guys, so I am planning to pick up soon with non-sock videos as well. But I need to know what you guys want to know. What do you want to know about my yarn specifically in my shop? What do you want to know about knitting, crochet in general? What do you want to know about spinning? Disclaimer, I just started, I'm not that good, but I will definitely do a video on anything I can dig up. Do you want to see more technique demonstration videos? I've had a lot of requests for those actually, so I had not planned to go that route, but we might end up there. Do you want to see more yarn reviews, book reviews? What do you want to see? And I will do my best to fit that into my vision and the direction that we're going. You guys kind of set the tone with your comments. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. That really helps me build my numbers and figure out what people are liking, so I can do more of what you like and less of what you don't. Also, like I said, comments are the most helpful for that, because I can really tailor it to what you want to see. And then subscribe to my channel, because you don't ever want to miss a video. It won't all be sock talk, and there will be lots of fun, crazy things, new hair colors, new yarn colors, new everything coming up. So continue to check out my videos there. And that's where we're going to cast off for today. Love you.